Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Scryfall Shenanigans. So as a result of me doing an episode on the mythics of Scars of Mirrodin, as is often the case, I'll notice a creature type within the set that interests me. Apart from the obvious creature types that I've mentioned in the past, like elementals, there are other ones which sort of grab my attention when I see them in a set. And so I figured what I would do is do a slice through the horrors of Scars of Mirrodin. But before I do that, and we look at it, through the lens of the different rarities, I thought I'd just do a little bit of a backstory about my relationship with horrors in Magic the Gathering. So horrors have been around for a long time. If we go back to Legends, now what you'll notice is yes, horror was a type way back then, but a number of other types have been errated to Legends. So cards which originally, sorry, did I say errated to Legends? I meant to say errated to horrors. You'll notice that there are quite a number of cards early on in Magic's history, which I've brought up before about this, that their creature types have been redefined or added to. Often, in the case of Legends, because Legends just said summon legends, and now if you look at them, they have legendary creature, in this case Phyrexian horror. But as you saw there were actually cards which are originally horrors and are still horrors. So my first sort of exposure, I suppose, or the first time I really became aware of the presence of horrors in Magic the Gathering, even though I'd opened I suspect, or looked at decks with them in, it was really Thought Gorger that did it for me. And this is from Rise of the Eldrazi. So yeah, when I saw this, that was the point at which I was first minded to, entertain. I didn't finally build it, but entertain the idea of building a horror deck, and to the point at which I think I went out and bought 4 copies of, like, a play set of the horrors from that time. So Kideric Creeper, Infectious Horror, Kideric Parasite, Shambling Remains, Ethereum Abomination, Nemesis of the Reason, and Thought Gorger, because these, I believe, if I've got this right, so you got Scars of Mirrodin into Zendikar in terms of standard. So yeah, there would have been a version of standard which would have had all of these horrors in it. If that's correct, yeah, I think I'm pretty sure about that. Yeah, so, and if you're curious, because we won't be seeing any there's no mythic horrors, or horrors that are mythic in Scars of Mirrodin, but if you compare, so if we look at the original count, so 330 cards that either were horrors when they were created or have been errated to be a horror in some capacity. If you look at how many of those are mythics, there's actually 31, and that starts with Phyrexian Obliterator from New Phyrexia. And then we've got things like the Gitrog Monster, Atraxa, Gisela the Broken Blade is an angel horror. You've got things like Hostile Hotel, which is a double-face card where there's a horror construct on the other side. And you can see there's quite a number here of legendary creatures, and you know, several that stick out as being, you know, from certain sets. So we've got, you know, what, 4 overlords here, which are all horrors. And these ones as well, these Phyrexian horrors. So yeah, interesting thing to look at, but for this episode we're going to have a look at Scars of Mirrodin, so let's dive in. I think just for... I'll leave there actually, because I've probably got to capture those at the end of the video. Yeah, so there's 9 horrors in Scars of Mirrodin. You've got Thrumming Bird, Ballista Grub, Corrupted Harvester, Drosshopper, Fume Spitter, Necrogen's Scudder, these have got great names, Plague Stinger, Putrefax, and Tanglangler. So Plague Stinger is a 1 and a black 1/1 with Flying and Infect. In fact, several of these, and that's due to the, obviously, an overlap with the abilities and mechanics of the set. You can see several of these are Infect creatures. We got some that mess about with -1/-1 but don't specifically say Infect, and we've got some Proliferate here as well, so interesting to see. So let's go through this. Firstly, we'll look at the prices, because they're pretty reasonable. So the most expensive one is Putrefax, clocking in at 55 cents. Trample Haste, Infect, beginning of the end step, sacrifice Putrefax, 3 and 2 green, it's a 5/3. So it's in and then it goes away. And look, it's not, yeah, there's not much difference here. Plague Stinger, 22 cents. These are going to be very cheap. Flying Infect, again, not a big difference here. This has got Phyrexian Insect. You can see, yeah, these have been designated to be like a hybrid type, rather than just being an out-and-out horror as they were at the time. So, you know, this one's now Phyrexian horror, this one's now a Phyrexian insect horror. Thrumming Bird, interesting card, because when it deals combat damage to a player, it proliferates. So, you know, any number of permanents and all players that have any counter of each kind already there get another one. That's 18 cents. You can see it's been reprinted a few times. Different forms. There is some alternate artwork here as well, although most of it you can see is the previous or the first artwork. Tanglangler. This was always weird artwork. I couldn't quite work out what was going on here. Yep, so another one where we've had Phyrexian added to it. But other things pretty much stay the same. 15 cents. Drosshopper, 13 cents. This is a Phyrexian insect horror now. One and a black for a 2/1 with sacrifice a creature. Drosshopper gains flying until end of turn. Fume Spitter. Again, I think all of these probably have had Phyrexian added in. This was actually in the dual decks as well. Mirrodin Pure versus New Phyrexia, and turned up in Ultimate Masters. 1/1 for 1. Corrupted Harvester. Never been reprinted, at least at the point at which this video goes out.
Black sacrifice creature regenerate corrupted harvester. It's a 6/3 for 4 and 2 black. And we have Blister Grub, 8 cents. It's another one that was in a dual deck. This one was Nissa versus Obnixilis. It's got Swamp Walk on it, and when it dies, each opponent loses 2 life. So that's been slightly simplified in the errata text there. And then we've got Necrogen Scutter. So that's 4 cents, 2 cents in Magic 2025. And yeah, another one where it's just, so it looks like all of these have had Phyrexian as a type added, but they all were originally horrors. Okay, so let's dig down a little bit deeper. So there are four of those out of the original, what was it, 9. 4 are common. So we have Blister Grub, yeah, notice with this, when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life. So in multiplayer, you're hitting everybody. But it's not a drain life, it's not a life exchange, should I say. So, you're not gaining any life from that. And then you've got things that boxes that it ticks, like Death Trigger Self. I think most of these we've looked at in the course of either Scryfall Shenanigans or other series I've done where I'm sort of using Scryfall as a sort of crutch, as a support for discussing things, particularly the tagger. So I think I'm going to spend a little bit more time with this one actually in the Cube Cobra. Okay, here we go. Ooh, often drafted with Doomblade. There's some classics here. Doomblade, Massacre Worm, Ravenous Cooper Cobra. What's that card which does a similar thing? But you have the option to just have the spell effect. I'm sure it will come to me at some point. Shriekmaw, that's it. With Evoke on it. Yeah, so this is interesting. What does it actually synergise with? Oh yeah, Phyrexian Rebirth, one of my favourite cards in Magic. So yeah, very interesting index where you want to be getting stuff into your graveyard, like creatures. And it's always nice to have some sort of synergistic side effect or something that you actually get, apart from it just ending up in the graveyard. You might have stuff triggering off the entry to the graveyard, but it's nice when it has something that triggers, like a death trigger on itself. Oh, I don't know if you remember this one, Flintsamite, which was a gremlin from Mirrodin Besieged. Sinister Starfish, cool. Let's have a look at Drosshopper. You may sacrifice Drosshopper to pay for its own ability. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. If you do, however, it won't gain flying because it won't be on the battlefield. We'll go through the EDH stats at the end of this, actually. free sack outlet. $164 of those. Oh yeah, of course the ATOGs. Yeah. Things like blood band. It's got jump on it, which is yeah, not surprisingly named after jump. So target creature gains flying until end of turn. So what does that synergize with? Okay. What's this? Undoable. What's a cleric? Okay. There's Tenacious Dead. So I imagine there's a few here with some sort of death-related trigger or sack effect or yeah, stuff, you know, similar graveyard shenanigans. And there's Blister Pod. It's generating Eldrazi Scion creatures. That was an interesting thing around that time with those sort of Eldrazi tokens which you could use to generate colourless mana. You have to excuse my voice, it's a bit messed up. Fume Spitter. Put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Sacrifice it. Okay, so we've got quite a few interesting ones here that got sack effects on them. Again, Fume Spitter can be the target with its own ability. The ability won't resolve since it won't have a legal target and no counter will be put on any creature. But this does allow you to sacrifice Fume Spitter without another creature to target if you want to. So maybe you've got something else in play which is triggering off of stuff dying. That's why. Yep, so it gives MM counters. It's a martyr effect, which again we've looked at before. Creatures that sacrifice themselves for a benefit. You can see here the number of creatures that have sort of -1/-1 things. There's a few where you can see here it's actually referencing it in the reminder text as a result of it being an infect creature. And of course things like Wither as well, where that would be when you first saw it. Oh, yeah, got some classics here. Unearth, Doomblade, Chittering Rats, Carrion Feeder, Gary, yeah. Oh, Gilmore Angler. Plague Stinger, Night Howler. Oh yeah, Brain Maggot. What's that reprinted in? So originally, Journey into Nyx was an F&M card, but the rest are all online copies. Okay. For some reason I thought that had been reprinted in another set actually. Oh, did I see Stitch Strike there as well? I think so, yeah. I just come from there. Yeah, I did. Plague Stinger. Oh, okay. Slightly more rules and notes here. So yeah, so is this the first one that specifically mentions infect? I think it does. So yeah, we've got all the stuff about poison and just how infect works. Damage from a source with infect is damage in all respects. If the source with infect also has lifelink, damage dealt by that source also causes its controller to gain that much life. Damage from a source with infect can be prevented or redirected. Abilities that trigger on damage being dealt will trigger if a source with infect deals damage if appropriate. Damage from a source with infect affects planeswalkers normally. Infect's effect applies to any damage, not just combat damage. That's interesting. So -1/-1 counters remain on the creature indefinitely. They're not removed if the creature regenerates. Okay. And then the game loss thing. So a player who's 10 or more points and counters loses a game. This is a state-based action. So I think, in terms of the rules, yeah, but that one's probably got the most notes and rules. Okay, so 4 uncommons. Corrupted Harvester. Yeah, so there's quite a few here where you can actually sacrifice it, but yeah, it doesn't regenerate. So in a pinch, if there was some reason why you wanted some other death trigger on something else to trigger, then yeah, you can do that, but you don't benefit from this. Regenerate. And that's a really good point there. So you may sacrifice Corrupted Harvester to pay for its own regeneration ability. If you do, it won't regenerate. So a lot of people might not know that. I might go, okay, I'm going to sack it, and then it will regenerate. So the creature I'm going to sacrifice is itself, and then it will regenerate, come back onto the battlefield, or just but yeah, it's not the case. Just end up in its own graveyard as a result of the sacrifice. Regenerate self. Although, again, it technically can't, which is rather amusing. Not according to the rules, anyway. Oh, Pact of Negation. Excellent. Dark Ritual. Some cool ones here. In terms of stuff that's drafted with. What about synergistic cards? Probably, yeah, another sort of collection of stuff that would be at home in, the sort of decks, which that card obviously would be at home in. Blighted Bat. What was that from? Jumpstart. Okay. Oh, there's a mimic there. Yeah, some really interesting cards in that sort of, Lorwyn into Shadowmoor, sort of 2 mini blocks. There were some real cool cycles of creatures, like lieges and these mimics. And other spells as well that, interacted some way or synergized some way with the colours of things in your deck, either when you were playing them or stuff that was on the battlefield. Necrogen's Scudder. When it enters the battlefield, you lose 3 life. So you get a 3/3 for 3 with flying. So the downside is that when it comes into play, notice now it's simplified to just enters. But when it comes into play, you lose 3 life. And you see that in black a lot, where you might have a cost against an alternative resource, particularly life, for certain cards. Yeah, so it's obviously a drawback and has life payment. So 531 cards that cost life to use, not necessarily with the pay keyword. So there might be different ways of doing that. And 957 cards that have some sort of drawback, not just, using life as a resource. So virtual French vanilla. These creatures and vehicles are effectively just French vanilla after entering the battlefield. They may have enters the battlefield or a on-cost trigger. So yeah, you get these layers, don't you, where you've got vanilla creatures, French vanilla creatures, and then virtual French vanilla. So with the vanilla creatures, it's like something like a 2/2 for 2 with no abilities. Then you have French vanilla, which might be say for example, again same sort of thing, 2/2 for 2, but this time round has keyworded abilities. And then the virtual French vanilla, where again you can have a 2/2 for 2 and it has some sort of ETB on it, but once it is in play, it's just a French vanilla. So yeah, and of course in order to do that it would have to be a French vanilla as well, so have some sort of keyworded ability. I'm assuming you can you have a virtual vanilla which is a 2/2 for 2 with an ETB but no other keyworded ability. I'm assuming that under that way of thinking about it, that would be the case. Not sure though. Better than Serpent Warrior. Okay. 3/3 for 3. When it's a battlefield, you lose 3 life. Oh, because Serpent Warrior doesn't have flying. Fair enough. What's that from? Okay. Oh, there's Shriekmaw, funnily enough. So, often drafted with these cards. Shadowmoor Infiltrator, Skin Render. That does 3/1/1 counters on target creature. In terms of the synergistic cards, that's Howling Banshee. So it looks like we've got several cards here where they come into play or some other trigger. They, you get life loss. Now I remember Augur of Skulls. So what was that? No. Okay, only in the list. Did I... Just looking at this, like sack it, target player discards 2 cards, activate during a new copy. I wonder if we ever looked at this as part of the No Hand No Land episode. It's possible. It's Howling Banshee, Pulse Tracker. Yep, Death Gaze Cockatrice from, is that M14? It's got Death Touch on it. Tangle Angler. Yeah, this one always fascinated me with this artwork. Very weird. Oh wow. Creature blocks. So I'm assuming, so we've got all the infect stuff here. Activating Tangle Angler's second ability does not force you to attack with Tangle Angler that turn. If it doesn't attack, the target creature is free to block whatever creature its controller chooses, or block no creatures at all. Target creature blocks Tangle Angler this turn if able. Okay. Oh, I see. Right. Interesting. And then what would you? Oh, poisonous. Okay. It's tagged as. Makes or is a creature that poisons a player when it hits them. So 132 of those. And if you're looking for when that became a thing, and with these older cards that you can sort of see here, yeah, poison's been around for quite a while. Legends. That provoked light. Okay, I don't think I've ever seen this before. 23 of them. That creature must block this combat if able. It's light provoke, but without the untapping, and similar to lure and lure limited. Oh, okay. So I've got 23 of those. Oh yeah, grappling hooks in here. When did that originally get printed? That was in the Zendikar. Wow. Cube Cobra. Often drafted with, some interesting ones here, yeah. All these effect things. Glistener Elf. Cyst Bearer. Oh yeah, Contagion Clasp. And Scryfall, which we looked at in the Mythics episode. It's got Infect on it. Septic Rats. There's Strumming Bird, Plague Stinger, yeah. So a number of horrors. Synergy wise, what have we got? Flesh Eater Imp. Yeah, so we're definitely looking at introductions into cube because of Infect. Oh yeah, of course you've got these Trigons, haven't you, as well? The charge counters, which you can actually put on there, but because they're counters you can proliferate if you felt so inclined, and at the appropriate cards. They were uncommon. Thrumming Bird, here we go. It's Commander Masters. I did know this cropped up in a Commander product 2016. Got a few rules there because it's got proliferate on it, so yeah, you can choose any player who has a counter, including opponents. So that's really interesting in EDH, like as a political move. But of course, if you wanted to increase someone's poison counters, or infect counters, or wither counters, so on their creatures. So yeah. Okay, what's this? That's interesting. If a player or permanent has more than one kind of counter on it, which you could have, and you choose for it to get additional counters, it must get one of each kind of counter it already has. You can't have it get just one kind of counter it already has and not the other. Okay, so that is interesting. So yeah, because you're choosing the permanent, aren't you? Rather than choosing the counters. So you choose the permanent and then it's the counters on the permanent that proliferate. Yeah, I wondered this actually. If a permanent ever has both +1/+1 and -1/-1 counters on it at the same time, they're removed in pairs as a state-based action so that the permanent has only one of these kind of counters on it. Yeah, because that can get very confusing. And yeah, the ability that triggers whenever you proliferate triggers even if you choose no permanents or players while doing so. So you can opt to proliferate and then say, actually, I'm not going to choose any permanents. But then if there's something in play that triggers off of whenever you proliferate, that will trigger. Oh, interesting stuff here. What's this? Ravnica Remastered. Right. It's originally in Gate Crash. Oh, and the guild kits. Right, okay. There's Moldrifter. So I was talking about Shriekmore earlier, wasn't I, with her? She also has Evoke on it. Yep, more proliferate stuff. Experiment 1. Yeah, this was... I really liked sort of Evolve and, the counters that you saw in, Ravnica. This would have been Gate Crash, wouldn't it? Which was part of the Return to Ravnica block. And that was the green blue Simic ability, I think, from what I remember. And yeah, we have a few, not surprisingly, green blue things here that synergize well with this card. Oh yeah, rapid hybridization. I did have a green blue Simic deck, but I just can't remember what I put in it. So, yeah, there is but one rare that's RA in Scars of Mirrodin, and that is Putrefax. So again, a lot of notes and rules about poison, -1/-1 counters. Anything about the beginning of the end step? Probably not. So yeah, Ball Lightning, high damage 1-turn creature, and when you look at Ball Lightning, if you do his first printing, I suppose I was first aware of Ball Lightning. Was it in? I can never remember whether it was in 10th edition or M10. And or both, but it's been around since the Dark. Yeah, Magic 2010. That's right. Because I think I pulled one of these when I opened some packs. May have had a foil of that as well. It was pretty nice in foil. Yeah, the Dark version will set you back 44.51. But I like that artwork. It's really cool. You can get a 4th edition version. 5th edition. It's an interesting one in the Beatdown box set. I think I have seen one of those sometimes, sort of languishing in a game store. I didn't buy it at the time. I wish I had. That was a long time ago. Oh yeah, I remember this Groundbreaker. So that's colour shifted version for Planar Chaos. Oh yeah, called Spark Elemental, which is a 3/1. In fact, I've got a deck somewhere that generates 3/1 tokens. I'm trying to remember if that. Yeah, that's Sekar Deathkeeper's ability, where it says whenever another non-token creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, put a 3/1 black and red Graveborn creature token with haste into play. But that doesn't go away. Yeah. So that was because I've got like the original. That was a Cold Snap theme deck. But I did build. I'm pretty sure I built a. Yeah, I did an episode, didn't I, of Commander Fodder? I think in paper, where I built various iterations of a deck like that. So yeah, that's fun to play around with actually, and quite relevant to the sort of cards we've been looking at, which you can sack. So yeah. Look. There's a Spark Elemental token. Oh, and the Shrines, yeah. 7/1 Red Elemental creature. And Hellspark Elemental, but that has Unearth. And Chandra Flamecooler generates elemental creature tokens. It's interesting to see it in the alternate frames, the future shifted ones. Oh, of course, yeah, Arc Runner. Wow. Right, let's see what we get here. So often drafted with a number of infect cards. Well, surprise, surprise. Yep. There's that nice ink moth next with the alternate art as well. Oh, it's got rankle here. Well, that's been reprinted a few times. It's one of my favourite cards, I think. One of many. God, there's so much stuff here from like Mirrodin Besieged that I just forget about, like this Phyrexian Vat Mother. Okay. And then finally, let's have a look at what we're going to do here. Why did I have Thrumming Bird up? Interesting. Let me just get rid of this. Sometimes it gets very confusing when I'm doing these. So we want Creature Horror. And we're going to sort by EDHRec ranking, yeah. Oh, that was what, yeah, I probably went in here to see that. Right. Yeah, because that makes sense now. Sometimes I just pre-check the EDHRec ranking and then forget that I've done that when I come to do the episode. Okay. Well, some interesting commanders there. Atraxia, Skeleton Ship. Yeah, that's right. That's the one with -1/-1 counters on it. Pretty sure I got a copy of that because that was as a result of me reading articles on Commander in the early days of just as it had been changed from being referred to as EDH to Commander as Wizards got more involved in the format. And I remember sort of collecting together certain cards from an article which was talking about certain like 2-colour combinations that were interesting to play with, and the sort of approach was to basically start off with like a pool of cards. So you had a particular colour combination, so it might be like blue-black. So there was a number of interesting cards that were Commander friendly. Then there was also another part to the toolkit, which was, stuff that doesn't have a colour identity, which would also just generally go into any deck that has interesting utility anyway. So a lot of colours, things like artifacts that have good utility for multiplayer and those sort of things. So you sort of started off with that as your starting point, shoved in your basic land with the appropriate artwork, of course, and then that gave you a number of slots free where you could just stick in stuff you wanted to play. So really old school, but there was a core underneath it all with those initial cards you added in the colour combinations, which gave some sort of theme to the deck, but you were still open in when you add the additional cards, do you choose to synergize with that theme, or do you just want to play cool stuff or rares in your collection that you just want to play? So, and I think that it's like anything when you get into any format, what you see, I think, as the original articles, is obviously going to influence the way you approach it. So I suspect, had I have come in a little bit later, been aware of the format a little bit later, because that would have been just before the release of the commander decks. Probably my thoughts on deck building might be slightly different, and I might have a tendency to really obsess about synergies, whereas it's like, yeah, it's nice to have a bit of synergy in there, but sometimes it's just nice to play the stuff that makes you smile or has cool artwork. Yeah, so Hummingbird, Plaid Stinger, Fume Spitter, Putrefax, Drosshopper, Tanglangler, Blister Grub, Necron, Scutter, and Corrupted Harvester, in that order on the EDHRec ranking database. Yeah, I mean, this is just a cool card, I think. So what does that sort of end up in? Next one on the list. Okay. I suppose an interesting thing to do at some point would be just to like add all of these, in the deck building program, and then get it to suggest, what sort of decks might potentially incorporate all of these cards. So what we've got: blue, black, green, horrors. Now, one thing I didn't check, which we'll check in a moment, I'm curious as to the legendary creature side of things. So we'll have a look at that. But obviously, as we go down the list, the cards, crop up in commander decks less and less. It's interesting though, isn't it? Blue, black, green. I'm trying to think. What would that be? So blue, black, green would be a wedge. It wouldn't be a shard, because a shard would be blue, black, red. Yeah. Blue, black, green. Let's just have a look. Creature type horror, type of legendary. Okay. So we do have a Traxxas, obviously, but that's got white in it as well. Okay, so we do have EDHRec the Desecrated. I mean, should be able to do this, something like, it's a bit more specific, isn't it, if I do colour blue, and there are multiple ways I think you can do this. Colour black and colour green. Okay, so EDHRec is the one. So legendary creature, elemental, horror. So let me know in the comments section if you want me to try and build a EDHRec deck. I'll have to do it on I'll do it online. I don't think I have this in paper. Yeah, I'd have to look through, but inevitably it's going to just be easier to do online. So yeah, that was really interesting. I enjoyed looking through horrors. Legendary creature, elemental, horror. I might just prep that up in case someone does say, oh yeah, do a EDHRec deck. So thanks once again for watching. I do apologise for my slightly erratic throat, but I just wanted to do this today. I was quite excited about horrors of Scars of Mirrodin. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future video.